comes back and wins FIBA qualifier MVP. While all the other players are staying fresh, staying in the groove, going.
Caitlin Clark just won the FIBA World Cup MVP. Not Team USA. Not the veterans. Her. And the WNBA front office is sweating right now, because they cannot spin this one. Let's set the scene. The league spent 2 years trying to convince you that Clark was a marketing phenomenon, not a basketball phenomenon. That she was popular, sure, but that the real players, the veterans, the proven winners, were the backbone of this sport. They drowned out her highlights. They downplayed her numbers. They let the narrative breathe that she still had something to prove at the elite level. FIBA just torched that narrative to the ground. An international governing body with zero agenda, zero loyalty to WNBA politics, and zero reason to protect anyone's feelings looked at the data from that World Cup and handed the MVP trophy to a second-year pro. Not Breanna Stewart. Not Aya Wilson. Not any of the 10-year veterans who were supposed to be carrying this program. Caitlin Clark. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable for the league. The WNBA has a massive structural problem heading into next season, and the World Cup just ripped the curtain wide open. Teams built their rosters, their marketing budgets, their entire brand positioning around the assumption that Clark was an attraction, not the standard. That calculation is now broken. Because when FIBA hands you the MVP of a gold medal tournament, you are no longer a storyline. You are the story. You are not the rising tide. You are the ceiling. And every franchise that chose not to build around that ceiling, every coach who benched her, every executive who quietly hoped she'd plateau, they are all staring at the same uncomfortable question this morning. What do we do now? The Indiana Fever just became the most important franchise in professional women's basketball, not because of what they built, but because of what the rest of the league failed to recognize in time. This MVP doesn't just validate Clark. It indicts a system that spent 2 years trying to manage her instead of maximize her. The WNBA wanted a controlled star. FIBA just gave them an undeniable one. Number 2. The numbers don't lie. And right now, they're telling a story the league desperately doesn't want you to read. Caitlin Clark just led the entire FIBA World Cup tournament in points, assists, and plus-minus. But here's the stat that should have every veteran in the league quietly panicking. She shot 52% on 2-point field goals. A 24-year-old perimeter guard, the player the establishment spent 2 years calling a system player with no mid-range game, just outshot seasoned post players in the most efficient area of the floor. That's not a storyline anymore. That's a verdict. And the WNBA front office felt it immediately. Within hours of the MVP announcement, the league and the Players Association ended their CBA standoff. A labor battle that had dragged on for months, threatening to derail the entire 2026 season, suddenly resolved itself, 51 days before tip-off. You want to know why the timing is so revealing? The owners looked at Clark's global television numbers. They looked at the sellout arenas, the record broadcast deals, the international attention she single-handedly generated. And then they looked at the leverage the players' union thought they had, and called the bluff. Because here's the uncomfortable truth underneath the celebration. The financial infrastructure that funded this new deal, the charter flights, the housing stipends, the $500,000 average salaries, was built almost entirely on the commercial gravity of one player. The same player some of these veterans spent the last 2 years publicly undermining. Veteran forward Alicia Clark said the quiet part loud at the press conference. She said players like her, the ones on their way out, are going to feel the benefits of this deal the most. That's not spin. That's the actual explanation for why negotiations dragged to the 11th hour. The veterans needed the Clark revenue to hit their accounts before they retired. The clock was running on their careers, and they knew it. They secured the bag. On the back of the rookie they resented. Now the league has 51 days to ratify the deal, execute a 2-team expansion draft for Portland and Toronto, hold a collegiate draft on April 13th, and manage the most chaotic free agency period in WNBA history. Nearly every major star opted out of the previous CBA. That means over 100 players, including the biggest names in the league, are currently unrestricted free agents. The moment this deal is ratified, the market explodes. General managers who have been frozen for months will be outbidding each other in real time. Rosters will be dismantled and rebuilt in days. And the Indiana Fever front office needs to understand something very clearly. What Clark just did on the international stage wasn't a peak. It was a baseline. Teams are about to spend the next 51 days deciding whether they're building toward her or running from her. That is the only choice that matters this offseason.
Keep those people on turns away from me. After a prolonged labor battle, the WNBA and WNBA Players Association reached a verbal agreement on the terms of a new collective bargaining agreement early Wednesday, just 51 days before the league's 30th season is set to tip off. Quote, "The progress made in these discussions marks a transformative step forward."
Amber Cox and Kelly Kroskoff have never faced a moment like this one. They own the most valuable offensive asset in the history of women's basketball. They are entering the most wide-open free agency period the WNBA has ever seen. Every roster decision they make over the next 51 days will either accelerate a dynasty or delay it by years. There is no middle ground here. There is no partial credit. The blueprint is not complicated, but executing it requires a level of front office discipline that most organizations simply don't have. You do not build around Caitlin Clark by chasing names. You build around her by chasing fit. You need rim-running bigs who can set hard screens, sprint the floor, and catch outlet passes in stride. You need switchable perimeter defenders who can guard 1 through 4 and knock down corner threes when the defense collapses, and it will collapse every single possession. You need players who understand that their job is to make the reads she creates easier, not to manufacture their own offense out of nothing. What you absolutely cannot do is bring in veterans who need the ball in their hands to feel relevant. You cannot sign players who slow the pace, demand isolation sets, or have spent a decade building a game that fundamentally conflicts with the tempo she operates at. That is not roster construction. That is sabotage with a salary attached to it. Watch the FIBA tape. Watch what happens when she has athletes around her who simply run. The offense becomes a mathematical problem that defenses cannot solve. You cannot guard the logo shooter and protect the rim simultaneously. You cannot hedge the pick and roll and recover to the corner. The read she makes happen so fast that the defense is always one rotation behind. That is not a system. That is a weapon. And the Fever front office needs to build a roster worthy of carrying it. The league itself has pulled back from the edge. A cancelled season was a genuine possibility weeks ago, and somehow the WNBA navigated through it. The owners protected their television contracts. The veterans secured generational salaries that will change the financial landscape of the sport permanently. A new era of professional infrastructure is officially in place. And Caitlin Clark came back from the international stage with an MVP trophy and a game that has clearly evolved beyond what anyone was prepared for. The 2026 season is going to be the most watched, most analyzed, and most consequential season in the history of women's basketball. Every front office decision will be scrutinized. Every lineup will be debated. Every loss will be autopsied in real time by a global audience that is no longer casual. They are invested. The Indiana Fever are the center of all of it. That is the situation. That is the responsibility. And there is no margin for sentimental roster building or politically motivated signings when the window is this wide open. Thank you for being here on WNBA Pro. This channel exists for one reason: to give you the unfiltered truth about the business and the basketball, without the manufactured narratives and without the establishment spin. If this is the content you've been looking for, subscribe and drop a like so the algorithm knows where to send people who actually want the real analysis. Tell me in the comments, do the veterans quietly owe Clark a thank you for the contracts they just signed? And who should the Fever target when free agency opens? The 2026 season starts now. Don't look away.
Look, number 1 in points, number 1 in assists, number 1 in true shooting percentage, number 1 in plus minus, number 1 in 2-point